Welcome to the Worm Cozy Blanket channel. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that will make you nervous. Subscribe to my channel and like me if you like what I do. Now, make yourselves comfortable, and I'm going to start my story. The Echo Chamber. Chapter 1, Fragments. Claire Novak sat alone in her dimly lit apartment, staring at the glowing screen projected onto the wall from her Echo Drive interface. It pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat, as she scrolled through the day's recordings. She always reviewed them before bed. It was a habit born out of paranoia more than necessity. Every conversation, every step, every fleeting emotion was captured in crystalline clarity, preserved forever. Or so they said. But tonight, something felt off. She tapped the playback icon for 8:47 p.m., a mundane timestamp marking her walk home from the office. The video began, and Claire watched herself stride down the rain-slicked streets of downtown Chicago. Her reflection shimmered in puddles, distorted but familiar. Yet, halfway through the clip, just as she passed under the flickering street lamp on Monroe Avenue, the footage glitched. For 3 seconds, the image dissolved into static, then resumed as if nothing had happened. Claire leaned forward, her pulse quickening. Glitches were rare, almost unheard of. The Echo Corporation prided itself on perfection. Its devices were marketed as infallible. And yet, here it was, a crack in the armor. "What the hell?" she muttered, rewinding the clip again. This time, she slowed it frame by frame. Each pixel froze in place, revealing nothing unusual until the exact moment of the distortion. Then, amidst the chaos of white noise, she caught a glimpse of something impossible. A shadow moving across the screen, too fast to be real, too deliberate to be random. Her stomach churned. Shadows didn't move like that. Not unless someone or something was tampering with her memories. Chapter 2, The First Thread. The next morning, Claire arrived at the offices of the Sentinel, the investigative journalism outlet where she worked. The newsroom buzzed with activity, reporters shouting over one another as deadlines loomed. She ignored them all, heading straight for her desk in the corner. On the way, she grabbed a lukewarm coffee from the break room, sipping it absent-mindedly as she booted up her computer. Her inbox was flooded with press releases and tip-offs, but one email stood out. The subject line read, "Ask yourself why they're dying." Intrigued, Claire clicked it open. There was no greeting, no signature, just a single link to an encrypted file-sharing site. Her instincts screamed caution, but curiosity got the better of her. She downloaded the file. Inside was a dossier containing profiles of 5 individuals who had recently committed suicide. At first glance, they seemed unrelated. A college professor, a teenage gamer, a retired nurse, a corporate executive, and a stay-at-home dad. But as Claire scanned their details, a pattern emerged. All 5 had been early adopters of the Echo Drive, and all 5 had died within days of reporting technical issues with their implants. A chill ran down her spine. Was this connected to what she'd seen last night? She needed answers. But digging into the Echo Corporation wouldn't be easy. They were untouchable, their influence extending into every facet of society. Politicians, celebrities, CEOs all relied on the Echo drive to manage their public personas. Exposing them meant taking on the most powerful company in the world. Still, Claire couldn't let it go. She opened a new document on her laptop and typed a single word at the top of the page. Investigation. Chapter 3. The Whisper in the Static. By noon, Claire had devoured every scrap of information in the dossier. Each victim's story was meticulously documented police reports, suicide notes, or lack thereof, and interviews with grieving families. What struck her most was how ordinary they all seemed. These weren't people teetering on the edge of despair. These were everyday individuals whose lives had been upended by something inexplicable. She leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples. A headache was forming behind her eyes, sharp and insistent. Across the room, her colleague Marcus glanced over, raising an eyebrow. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said, his voice laced with sarcasm. "Maybe I have," Claire replied without looking up. She didn't want to explain, not yet. Not until she understood more herself. Her Echo drive buzzed softly against her temple, reminding her it was still there, always recording. For the first time, she resented its presence. It felt less like a tool and more like a parasite, feeding off her experiences while hiding secrets she couldn't access. Claire opened another tab on her computer and began researching the technical specifications of the Echo drive. Most of the publicly available data was marketing fluff, buzzwords like quantum encryption and neural synchronization. But buried deep in a forum for tech enthusiasts, she found a thread discussing anomalies. Users reported glitches similar to hers, fleeting moments of static, distorted audio, even brief blackouts. One user claimed their Echo drive had replayed fragments of someone else's memory. A stranger walking through a park, laughing with friends. The post ended abruptly. "I think they're watching me. If anything happens to me, don't believe what they say." Claire's breath hitched. She scrolled further, searching for responses, but the thread had been deleted. All that remained was a placeholder message. Content removed due to copyright infringement. Her phone vibrated on the desk, startling her. It was a text from an unknown number. "Stop digging. You won't like what you find." Chapter 4. Shadows in the Glass. The warning rattled her, but it also fueled her determination. Whoever sent the message clearly wanted her to back off, which meant she was onto something. Claire decided to pay a visit to one of the victims' families, the teenager, Alex Carter. According to the dossier, Alex had been a promising esports player, known for his quick reflexes and strategic mind. His death was ruled a suicide after he jumped from the roof of his apartment building, but his parents insisted he'd shown no signs of depression. The Carters lived in a quiet suburb on the outskirts of the city. Their home was modest, with peeling paint and a garden overtaken by weeds. When Claire knocked on the door, Mrs. Carter answered, her face lined with exhaustion. She recognized Claire immediately. "You're the reporter," she said, her voice trembling. "Come in." Inside, the air smelled faintly of lavender and dust. Photographs of Alex covered nearly every surface, smiling at tournaments, posing with teammates, holding trophies aloft. Mrs. Carter gestured for Claire to sit, then perched nervously on the edge of a worn armchair. "I didn't believe them when they said he killed himself," Mrs. Carter began, wringing her hands. "Alex loved life. He had plans, college scholarships, sponsorships. Then, 2 weeks before it happened, he started acting strange, withdrawn, paranoid. He kept saying things like, 'They're in my head,' or 'I can't shut it off.'" Claire's stomach tightened. Did he mention anything specific? Any names? Mrs. Carter hesitated, glancing toward the window, as if expecting someone to be watching. "Just once," he said. "Echo, that's all. Just echo." Chapter 5. The Rabbit Hole. Back at her apartment that evening, Claire stared at the words scrawled in her notebook. Echo. It loomed large, taunting her. She poured herself a glass of wine and tried to piece together what she knew so far. 5 deaths, all linked to the Echo drive. Glitches in her own device. A cryptic warning delivered straight to her phone. And now, Alex Carter's final words. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock at the door. Startled, she set down her glass and approached cautiously. Peering through the peephole, she saw a man standing in the hallway. He wore a dark hoodie pulled low over his face, obscuring his features. Something about him made her skin crawl. "Who is it?" she called out, keeping her voice steady. The man didn't respond. Instead, he slid a folded piece of paper under the door and walked away. Claire waited until his footsteps faded before retrieving the note. Unfolding it, she read the single sentence written inside. "Check your drive, Sector 12B. Her heart raced. Sector 12B wasn't part of the standard memory catalog. It was a hidden partition used exclusively by Echo Corporation employees. Accessing it required administrative privileges, which Claire definitely didn't have. But she couldn't ignore the directive. Whatever lay in that sector might hold the key to everything. Chapter 6. The Forbidden Memory. Claire spent hours hacking into her Echo drive, using every trick she'd learned during her years as an investigative journalist. Finally, just after midnight, she breached the firewall protecting Sector 12B. Her hands trembled as she initiated playback. At first, nothing happened. Then, the screen flickered to life, displaying a grainy, disjointed sequence of images. She saw flashes of unfamiliar places, a sterile laboratory, rows of servers humming with energy, men in suits arguing heatedly. Voices overlapped, muffled and distorted, until one phrase cut through clearly. Project Resonance must remain classified. Suddenly, the footage shifted. Claire found herself staring at her own face, but younger, wide-eyed, sitting across from a man she vaguely recognized. It was Dr. Elias Voss, the founder of Echo Corporation. They were in his office, surrounded by awards and patents bearing his name. "You'll never regret this," Voss was saying, his tone persuasive. "Together, we'll change the world." Claire froze. This memory wasn't hers, or at least, it wasn't one she remembered. How could she have forgotten working with Voss? Why had it been erased? As the clip ended, a new message appeared on the screen. Subject compromised. Initiate Protocol Omega. Before she could react, her apartment lights flickered violently, plunging her into darkness. Somewhere outside, a car engine roared to life, tires squealing as it sped away. Chapter 7. Running Blind. The darkness pressed in around Claire as she fumbled for her phone. Her hands were shaking so badly she nearly dropped it twice before managing to unlock the screen. She turned on the flashlight app, casting a weak beam across the room. The shadows seemed alive, shifting and retreating just beyond the edges of the light. Her mind raced. Someone, likely Echo Corporation, knew she'd accessed Sector 12B. They weren't just watching. They were actively hunting her now. Protocol Omega sounded ominous enough to make her blood run cold. Whatever it entailed, it couldn't be good. She grabbed her backpack, stuffing it with essentials: her laptop, a portable charger, cash, and a small pocket knife she kept for emergencies. Then she hesitated, staring at her Echo Drive interface still glowing faintly on the wall. If they could track her through the device, she needed to disable it. But removing an Echo Drive wasn't as simple as pulling out a USB stick. It was embedded deep in her neural pathways, designed to stay active until death. "Damn it," she muttered under her breath. For now, she'd have to risk keeping it intact. But she resolved to find someone who could help her sever the connection, or at least scramble its data. Claire slipped out of her apartment through the fire escape, avoiding the lobby entirely. The night air was cool against her skin as she moved swiftly through the alleys, sticking to the shadows. Every sound, the distant hum of traffic, the rustle of leaves, even her own footsteps, felt amplified, like the city itself was holding its breath. Chapter 8. A Name from the Past. By dawn, Claire had made it to a dingy motel on the outskirts of town. She paid in cash and used a fake name, careful not to leave any traceable records. The room smelled of mildew and cigarette smoke, but she barely noticed. Her focus was razor sharp as she booted up her laptop and began searching for answers. Project Resonance, Protocol Omega, Dr. Elias Voss. These fragments of information swirled in her mind, incomplete yet tantalizingly close to forming a coherent picture. She scoured online forums, news archives, and whistleblower sites, looking for anything that might connect the dots. Hours passed before she stumbled upon something promising: a defunct blog written by a former Echo Corporation employee named Daniel Cross. Cross's posts stopped abruptly 5 years ago, but his final entry caught her attention. Titled when memories become weapons. It described a secretive division within the company tasked with developing experimental technologies. According to Cross, Project Resonance involved manipulating memories, not just recording them, but altering them to control behavior. He claimed the project had been shelved due to ethical concerns, though he suspected it continued covertly. At the bottom of the post, Cross included a warning. "If you're reading this, they've already found me. Trust no one." Claire's heart sank. Another dead end, or so it seemed. Buried in the comments section, she discovered a single reply from an anonymous user. "Daniel went underground. Last I heard, he was hiding in Portland. Look for the memory keeper." Portland. It was a long shot, but it was all she had. Claire booked a bus ticket under another fake name and prepared to leave the city behind. Chapter 9. The Road Ahead. The journey to Portland took nearly 2 days, during which Claire alternated between restless sleep and feverish research. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being followed. Every glance over her shoulder revealed nothing, yet the paranoia gnawed at her relentlessly. Was it real, or was it a symptom of the rabbit hole she'd fallen into? When she finally arrived in Portland, the city greeted her with drizzling rain and gray skis. She checked into another cheap motel and began searching for clues about the memory keeper. After hours of fruitless inquiries, she decided to visit a local hackerspace rumored to attract tech-savvy misfits. If anyone knew how to locate Daniel Cross, it would be them. The hackerspace was tucked away in an industrial district, its entrance marked only by a spray-painted stencil of a circuit board. Inside, the air buzzed with activity. People hunched over laptops, tinkering with hardware, or engaged in heated debates about encryption algorithms. Claire approached a wiry young man with neon green hair and introduced herself cautiously. "I'm looking for someone," she said. "They call him the memory keeper." The man's eyes narrowed. "That depends. Who's asking?" Claire hesitated, then showed him a photo of Daniel Cross she'd found online. The man studied it for a moment, then nodded toward a corner of the room. "He's here. But if I were you, I wouldn't mention Echo Corp not unless you want trouble." Following his gaze, Claire spotted a man sitting alone at a cluttered workstation. His face was weathered, his beard streaked with gray, but his eyes betrayed a sharp intelligence. This was Daniel Cross, the man who might hold the key to unraveling the conspiracy. Chapter 10. Truth and Consequences. As Claire approached Daniel, her pulse quickened. He looked up from his work, his expression guarded. "You're not supposed to be here," he said bluntly, his voice low and gravelly. "I need your help," she replied, sliding into the seat across from him. "I think my memories have been tampered with, and I know you worked on Project Resonance." Daniel sighed, running a hand through his unkempt hair. "You don't understand what you're dealing with. People who dig too deep, they disappear." "I'm already disappearing," Claire shot back. "Someone broke into my apartment last night, left me a message. Initiate Protocol Omega. Does that mean anything to you? Daniel's face went pale. He glanced around nervously, then leaned closer. Protocol Omega is their failsafe. If a subject becomes compromised like you, they erase everything. Your memories, your identity, your life. You'll wake up somewhere else, believing you're someone else. Claire felt a chill run down her spine. Can it be stopped? Daniel hesitated, then nodded grimly. There's one way, but it's dangerous. We'd need to hack directly into the Echo Drive network and extract the original codebase for Project Resonance. If we succeed, we can expose the truth. If we fail, he trailed off, letting the implication hang in the air. Claire didn't hesitate. Let's do it. Chapter 11. The Network Breach. Daniel led Claire to a hidden basement beneath the hackerspace, accessible only through a trapdoor disguised as a floor panel. Inside, the air was thick with the hum of servers and the faint smell of burnt wiring. Rows of outdated computers lined the walls, their monitors flickering with cascading lines of code. This was Daniel's sanctuary, a fortress of forgotten tech where he could operate off the grid. We'll need to move fast, Daniel said as he powered up an ancient-looking terminal. Once they realize you're onto them, they'll send cleaners. Professional erasers. Cleaners, Claire echoed, her voice tight. Assassins who specialize in making people vanish without a trace. They'll make it look like an accident, or worse, convince everyone that you erased yourself. Claire swallowed hard, but nodded. She couldn't afford to hesitate now. What do we need to do? Daniel handed her a pair of augmented reality glasses connected to the terminal. Put these on. You'll see visualizations of the Echo Drive network. We're looking for anomalies, places where the system deviates from its standard protocols. That's where Project Resonance will be hiding. As Claire slipped on the glasses, the room dissolved into a kaleidoscope of glowing nodes and pulsating pathways. It was overwhelming at first, like staring into a digital galaxy, but she quickly adapted. Her eyes darted across the holographic display, searching for irregularities. There, Daniel pointed suddenly. A cluster of corrupted data stood out against the pristine architecture of the network. It pulsed erratically, almost alive. That's it, he whispered. Project Resonance. Chapter 12. Into the Void. Accessing the corrupted cluster required bypassing multiple layers of security. Each firewall tested their resolve, demanding increasingly complex solutions. Claire worked alongside Daniel, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she executed commands he dictated. Together, they dismantled encryption algorithms and rerouted power flows, inching closer to the core of the anomaly. But the deeper they went, the more unstable the system became. Alerts began flashing across the interface. Unauthorized access detected, initiating countermeasures. They know we're here, Daniel muttered, his tone grim. We've got minutes before they shut us down completely. Claire's heart pounded as she typed furiously. her vision blurring from exhaustion. Finally, they breached the final layer of defense. A massive file download initiated, pulling terabytes of classified data onto Daniel's external drive. As the transfer progressed, Claire noticed something strange, a second stream of information being uploaded into her Echo drive. "What's happening?" she demanded, panic rising. Daniel froze, his face pale. "They're counter-hacking you. They're trying to overwrite your memories." Before Claire could react, pain exploded in her skull. Her vision swam, and fragmented images flooded her mind, strange faces, unfamiliar places, voices speaking languages she didn't recognize. She stumbled backward, clutching her head, fighting to stay conscious. "Pull the plug," Daniel shouted, reaching for the terminal. But before he could disconnect the system, the lights in the basement flickered violently, plunging them into darkness. When the emergency backup generators kicked in seconds later, Claire found herself lying on the floor, disoriented and gasping for breath. Daniel crouched beside her, holding the external drive tightly. "It's done," he said, though his voice wavered. "The data's safe, but I don't know what they did to you." Chapter 13. Shattered Reflections. Back at the motel, Claire stared at herself in the cracked mirror above the sink. She barely recognized the woman staring back, her eyes hollow, her skin pale, her expression haunted. The memory overwrite had failed, but not entirely. Fragments of someone else's life lingered in her mind, intruding on her thoughts like static on a radio. She remembered standing on a beach at sunset, laughing with a man whose name she couldn't recall. She saw flashes of a child's birthday party, balloons floating toward the ceiling, though she had no children of her own. And worst of all, she felt a deep, aching sorrow for losses she couldn't explain. Daniel sat on the edge of the bed, reviewing the downloaded files. His laptop screen illuminated his face, casting sharp shadows across his features. "This is worse than I thought," he murmured, scrolling through document after document. Project Resonance wasn't just about memory manipulation. It was about creating sleeper agents, people programmed to carry out specific tasks without realizing it. Claire turned to him, her stomach churning. "Are you saying I'm one of them?" He hesitated, then nodded slowly. "It's possible. Your involvement with Voss, it wasn't random. They chose you for a reason." "For what?" she demanded, her voice breaking. "I don't know yet. But whatever it is, it's big enough to justify erasing your identity and killing anyone who gets too close." Chapter 14. The Cleaner. That night, Claire dreamed of fire. Flames engulfed a sprawling mansion, screams echoing in the distance. She woke with a start, drenched in sweat, the acrid smell of smoke still lingering in her nostrils. Before she could process the nightmare, a loud crash came from the other side of the door. Daniel bolted upright, grabbing a crowbar he kept by the bed. "Stay behind me," he ordered, moving toward the entrance. The door burst open, splintering under the force of a single kick. A figure stepped inside, silhouetted by the dim hallway light. He wore a sleek black suit and carried no visible weapons, but his presence radiated menace. "You shouldn't have come this far," the man said calmly, his voice devoid of emotion. Protocol Omega cannot be stopped. Without warning, he lunged at Daniel, moving with unnatural speed. Claire screamed as the two men collided, the sound of fists hitting flesh reverberating through the tiny room. Desperate, she grabbed the bedside lamp and swung it at the intruder's head. The base connected with a sickening thud, sending him stumbling backward. "Go," Daniel shouted, shoving her toward the window. "Take the drive and run." Claire hesitated, torn between fleeing and helping. Then she saw the cold determination in Daniel's eyes and knew he wouldn't survive this fight. Clutching the external drive to her chest, she scrambled out the window and disappeared into the night. Chapter 15. Ghosts in the Machine. Claire ran blindly through the rain-soaked streets of Portland, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The weight of the external drive pressed against her ribs, a constant reminder of what she carried and the lives that now depended on her success. Behind her, the motel receded into the distance, but she couldn't shake the image of Daniel fighting for his life. She didn't know if he'd survived, and part of her feared she'd never find out. Her mind raced as she navigated the labyrinthine alleys, trying to stay off the main roads where cameras might track her movements. Every shadow seemed to shift unnaturally. Every sound, a car engine revving, footsteps splashing through puddles, felt like a harbinger of pursuit. The cleaner had been terrifyingly efficient, almost superhuman. If he was still alive, he would come for her next. She ducked into an abandoned warehouse, seeking temporary refuge. Inside, the air smelled of rust and damp concrete. Moonlight filtered through broken windows, casting jagged patterns on the floor. Claire collapsed against a crumbling wall, clutching the drive tightly. Her thoughts spiraled between fear and determination. Whatever secrets lay within this data, they were worth risking everything for. Chapter 16. The Blueprint of Control. Using her laptop, Claire began decrypting the files Daniel had risked his life to retrieve. Each layer peeled back revealed more horrifying truths about Project Resonance. The program wasn't just about memory manipulation. It was a blueprint for societal control. Echo Corporation had developed algorithms capable of identifying individuals susceptible to suggestion and embedding subliminal commands within their neural recordings. These sleeper agents could be activated remotely, carrying out tasks ranging from corporate espionage to political assassinations without ever realizing they'd been compromised. One document detailed a list of high-profile targets: politicians, activists, whistleblowers, all marked for elimination. Another outlined plans to expand the technology globally, ensuring that no one would escape the reach of the Echo Drive. By the time Claire reached the final file, her hands were trembling with rage and despair. It was a video message from Dr. Elias Voss, recorded shortly before his supposed retirement. His face filled the screen, calm and calculating. "The human mind is flawed," Voss began, his tone clinical. "Chaotic, unpredictable, resistant to order. But with Project Resonance, we can create harmony. A world free of dissent, free of conflict, free of choice." Claire's stomach churned as the implications sank in. This wasn't just about profit or power. It was about reshaping humanity itself. And she had been part of it. Chapter 17. The Other Side of the Mirror. As Claire absorbed the magnitude of the conspiracy, fragments of her overwritten memories resurfaced with increasing intensity. She saw herself attending meetings at Echo Corporation headquarters, nodding along as Voss outlined the project's goals. She remembered sitting in a lab, watching technicians test the first prototypes on volunteers who screamed silently behind glass walls. Most disturbingly, she recalled moments of clarity, brief flashes, when she realized what she was helping to build, and the crushing guilt that followed. But there were gaps, too. Entire chunks of her past remained obscured, replaced by false narratives implanted by the company. Who was she, really? Had she truly believed in the project's mission, or had she been coerced? The uncertainty gnawed at her, threatening to unravel what little sanity she had left. Her Echo drive buzzed faintly against her temple, startling her. She hesitated, then accessed the interface, scrolling through recent recordings. To her horror, she discovered new glitches, entire hours missing from her timeline, replaced by distorted images of places she didn't recognize. Someone was still tampering with her memories, and they were getting closer. Chapter 18. Allies in the Shadows. Desperate for help, Claire reached out to Marcus, her colleague at the Sentinel. Though wary of involving him, she knew she couldn't do this alone. She sent him an encrypted message. "Meet me at the old library downtown. Bring burner phones and cash. Don't tell anyone." Hours later, they sat together in the library's deserted reading room, surrounded by dusty shelves and forgotten books. Marcus listened intently as Claire explained everything: the suicides, the glitches, the conspiracy, and her own compromised role in it all. When she finished, he stared at her in stunned silence. "This is insane," he finally said. "If even half of it's true, you're sitting on the story of the century." "It's all true," Claire replied, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "And if we don't expose it, they'll keep doing this. To everyone." Marcus nodded grimly. "Then we need to get this information to someone who can fight back. Someone powerful enough to take down Echo Corporation." Claire thought for a moment, then pulled up a contact buried deep in her phone's archives. It was a number she hadn't used in years, one belonging to Senator Margaret Hayes, a vocal critic of unchecked technological advancements. Hayes had once championed legislation to regulate companies like Echo Corporation, only to be silenced by corporate lobbyists. She won't trust me, Claire admitted. Not after what I've done. Let me handle it, Marcus said firmly. You focus on staying alive. Chapter 19, The Long Game. While Marcus worked to secure a meeting with Senator Hayes, Claire retreated deeper into the shadows, moving from safe house to safe house. Each day brought new challenges. Glitches in her echo drive grew more frequent, erasing larger portions of her memory. She started keeping handwritten notes, documenting every detail she could remember, knowing it might vanish at any moment. One evening, as she reviewed the notes, a pattern emerged. Certain locations appeared repeatedly. A decommissioned military base outside the city, a private island owned by Echo Corporation, and a research facility hidden beneath a mountain range. These were the hubs of Project Resonance, the places where the true horrors unfolded. Claire realized she couldn't rely solely on exposing the truth. If she wanted to stop Echo Corporation, she needed to strike at its heart. And that meant infiltrating one of those facilities. Chapter 20, Into the Abyss. With Marcus coordinating logistics and Senator Hayes preparing to go public with the evidence, Claire devised a plan to breach the underground research facility. Using blueprints extracted from the stolen data, she identified a maintenance tunnel that led directly into the complex. Armed with nothing but her wits and a borrowed pistol, she descended into the abyss. The facility was a nightmare made real. Rows of pods housed unconscious subjects, their faces pale and expressionless. Monitors displayed streams of neural activity, accompanied by eerie whispers that seemed to emanate from nowhere. Technicians moved silently among the equipment, their eyes hollow, as if drained of humanity. At the center of it all stood Dr. Elias Voss. He turned as Claire entered, his expression unreadable. "I wondered when you'd come," he said softly. "You always were resourceful, Claire." "You monster," she spat, raising the gun. "This ends now." Voss smiled faintly. "Does it, or does it begin?" Chapter 21, The Heart of the Machine. Claire's finger hovered over the trigger, her breath shallow, as she faced Dr. Elias Voss in the cold, sterile heart of the research facility. The air was thick with the hum of machinery and the faint scent of antiseptic. Behind Voss, rows of pods pulsed with an eerie blue light, each containing a subject suspended in a state of artificial consciousness. Their faces were eerily serene, masks of compliance crafted by Echo Corporation's insidious technology. "You don't understand what you're destroying," Voss said calmly, his tone almost paternal. "This isn't about control, it's about evolution. Humanity is flawed, chaotic, self-destructive. We're giving people a chance to transcend their limitations. By erasing who they are," Claire shot back, her voice trembling with rage. "You're not evolving humanity, you're exterminating it." Voss shook his head, a sad smile playing on his lips. "Free will is an illusion, Claire. People think they want choice, but all they really crave is certainty. We're offering them peace, a world without fear, without doubt. And at what cost? She demanded. How many lives have you ruined? How many deaths are on your hands? For the first time, Voss's composure faltered. His gaze flickered toward the monitors displaying streams of neural data, then back to Claire. You'd know better than anyone, he said softly. After all, you helped design this system. The words hit like a punch to the gut. Claire staggered, her grip on the gun wavering. Memories surged unbidden, long-suppressed fragments of her past life at Echo Corporation. She saw herself sitting in meetings, nodding along as Voss outlined Project Resonance. She remembered late nights in the lab, arguing ethics with colleagues who dismissed her concerns. And worst of all, she recalled the moment she'd signed off on the first human trials, believing she was building something revolutionary. No, she whispered, shaking her head. That wasn't me. I didn't. It was you, Voss interrupted, his voice firm now. But you weren't alone. You were one of many, all working toward a greater purpose. Do you think you're the only one struggling with guilt? Every decision has consequences, Claire. Progress requires sacrifice. Her vision blurred with tears, but she forced herself to focus. Not like this. Not by stealing people's minds. Voss sighed, stepping closer. Then stop me. Pull the trigger. But ask yourself, if you kill me, will anything change? Or will the machine keep running long after I'm gone? Chapter 22, Breaking the Cycle. Before Claire could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red lights flashed, bathing the room in crimson. Voss glanced at a nearby monitor, his expression hardening. They've breached the perimeter, he muttered. Your friends move quickly. Claire's heart skipped a beat. Marcus and Senator Hayes had acted faster than expected. Part of her wanted to feel relief, but another part knew this wasn't over. Not yet. What happens now? She asked, lowering the gun slightly. Voss smirked. Now, we see whether humanity is ready for the truth, or if they'll cling to their illusions. He turned and walked toward a control panel embedded in the wall, his movements deliberate. Claire hesitated, torn between stopping him and investigating the source of the alarm. Then she noticed something on the monitor, a countdown timer ticking down from 10 minutes. Self-destruct sequence initiated. A robotic voice announced over the intercom. Claire's blood ran cold. You're going to destroy everything. Not everything, Voss replied, his back still turned. Just enough to ensure the project survives. The data will be backed up, the subjects preserved. Humanity may reject us today, but tomorrow they'll beg for what we offer. Without thinking, Claire lunged forward, tackling Voss to the ground. The two struggled fiercely, grappling for control of the panel. Her Echo drive buzzed violently against her temple, sending waves of pain through her skull. Flashes of distorted memories assaulted her, faces screaming silently, hands reaching out for help. But she pushed through the agony, focusing on the task at hand. With a final burst of strength, Claire slammed Voss's hand into the edge of the console. He cried out, releasing his grip, and she seized the opportunity to disable the countdown. The timer froze at 30 seconds remaining. Breathing heavily, Claire stood over him, the gun trained on his chest. "It's over," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. Voss stared up at her, his eyes unreadable. "Is it?" Chapter 23. Epilogue fragments reassembled. Hours later, Claire emerged from the wreckage of the facility, blinking against the harsh sunlight. Emergency vehicles surrounded the site, their sirens wailing in the background. Marcus rushed to her side, wrapping her in a tight embrace. "You did it," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "The evidence is already going viral. Echo Corporation's stock is plummeting, and governments worldwide are launching investigations." Claire nodded numbly, her body racked with exhaustion. She wanted to feel triumphant, but instead, she felt hollow. The weight of what she'd uncovered and what she'd done lingered like a shadow over her soul. Senator Hayes approached, her expression grim but resolute. "You've given us a fighting chance," she said, "but the battle isn't over. Memory manipulation is just the beginning. If we don't regulate these technologies, someone else will pick up where Echo left off." "I know," Claire replied quietly, "but for now, the truth is out there." As the authorities took Voss into custody, Claire wandered away from the crowd, seeking solitude. She sat on a rocky outcrop overlooking the valley below, staring at the horizon. Her Echo drive buzzed faintly, a reminder of its presence, but she ignored it. For the first time in weeks, she felt a glimmer of hope. She pulled out a small notebook filled with handwritten notes, the fragments of her identity she'd managed to salvage. Each page represented a piece of herself, reclaimed from the abyss. It wasn't perfect, and it never would be, but it was hers. Somewhere deep inside, Claire realized she'd been searching for more than just answers. She'd been searching for redemption, for proof that even in a world controlled by machines, humanity could still choose to rise above. And maybe, just maybe, she'd found it.